Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on a guide to uninsured medical billing. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Damien Yanika, and I'm the practice consultant for Doctor Services Group. Before we get started, I'm going to share some webinar logistics. All attendees are in listen-only mode as we are recording this webinar. The recording of the webinar will be available to you after the event. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit your question in the Q&A feature. Your questions and your identity will be kept confidential and only seen by us. We will do a Q&A session to answer some of your questions at the end of today's webinar. Doctor Services Group is your complete solution for effectively managing all of your practice's uninsured medical services. We provide doctors with resources and tools to help with patient education, full service administration, as well as revenue generation. We take the majority of time-consuming tasks related to billing uninsured services off of your plate so that you can focus on the more important aspects of your practice, such as patient care. Let's face it, many physicians struggle with handling and collecting payments for uninsured medical services. These challenges lead to a loss in administrative time and a loss in billing revenue for physicians. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide you with guidance and solutions to bill your uninsured medical services effectively. That way, your patients can be informed about the appropriate guidelines so you can optimize your private billings revenue. For today's agenda, we are going to first look at the most common misconceptions of uninsured billing that we hear from doctors day in and day out, and also provide some light on these common misconceptions. We will then go into how private third-party billing works and the best practices to manage and bill efficiently. We will then end off with a Q&A session. Part 1. Common misconceptions of uninsured services we hear from our doctors. The first misconception is that we often hear it is too time-consuming to administer an uninsured services program. This is actually false. If the initial effort to create a well-organized and structured process is addressed at the very beginning, collecting for private billings will be quick and easy. If you also ensure that you're following the correct guidelines provided by your college, you're also less likely to run into issues. We do know that physicians become overwhelmed with trying to keep up with the latest guidelines. To avoid missing out on these private billing opportunities, many of them turn to third-party providers, such as us, to administer their uninsured services program. As industry experts, we manage to take care of 95% of the work required when implementing, executing, and follow-up for payments in order to maximize your revenue. The second misconception is that doctors think patients will inundate their practice with questions. This is also a common misconception. If your practice is offering an annual block fee for the first time, you'll be surprised as to how many patients are already aware of this type of program. You will naturally receive some calls from patients wanting more information. For this reason, many physicians prefer to use a third party to take these calls off their plate and educate patients about uninsured medical billings. Physicians direct these calls and inquiries directly to us, as we have the staffing capabilities to handle this. Over the past 2 decades of business, we never encountered a huge influx of inquiries. Patients are now more aware of annual block fee programs. So when they receive this notice, they are already prepared to enroll. From our experience, after the first year of implementation, patients understand the program and the number of calls naturally decrease over time. If you are working with us, the annual fee letter that we send to patients on your behalf includes our patient support line so that the calls come directly to us and not to your office. That way, your staff can stay focused at what they do best, which is supporting your patients and your practice. The third misconception is that patients won't pay for an annual block fee. This is largely false. When surveyed, patients tell us that there are two primary reasons why they pay an annual fee rather than a fee-for-service model. The first reason is that it is a convenient option which provides them with peace of mind. For many patients, it's easier to pay one annual fee upfront instead of dealing with the hassle of multiple payments throughout the year. This is particularly true for patients who know that they will utilize a number of non-covered administrative services over the course of the fee period. The second reason is it displays appreciation to their physician. Doctor Services Group regularly hears from patients that they signed up for their physician's annual fee out of respect for their doctor's work. Most patients understand that administrative services take up valuable staff and physician time and resources. In turn, these patients pay the annual fee to help support the practice while also ensuring peace of mind for themselves. On average, we see approximately 10 to 20% of patients enroll in annual block fee programs when administered by the Doctor Services Group. For example, if your practice is approximately 1,000 patients, around 100 to 200 patients could sign up for the program. This could potentially generate an additional $14,000 to $28,000 in additional revenue per year. Part 2, how uninsured services billing works. Let's start with the basics. What is considered an uninsured service? Uninsured services are services provided to patients that are not publicly funded by the ministry. In these instances, the patient or patient representative is responsible for payment. Examples of some common uninsured medical services include prescription renewals by phone or fax when requested by the patient or received from the pharmacy, completion of third-party forms and reports, such as sick notes, driver's medical forms, attending physician statements, as well as missed appointments or procedures. How does it all work? Uninsured services are paid by the patients. Generally, suggested rates and fees are provided by provincial medical associations, but at the end of the day, the rates you charge are determined by the physician. We know that there are some patients who may not be able to pay for the services based on the charges the medical association provides. We will go over some factors to consider when calculating fees later in this webinar. Please note that there are slight variances in how provinces manage services that are not publicly funded. So if you have any questions pertaining to your practice specifically, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A chat. So let's talk about office policies. There are practical guidelines you can follow when billing a patient directly for uninsured services. To help make the process as comfortable and efficient as possible, in order to establish an office policy on billing uninsured services, you should first determine, 1, the uninsured services that patients will be directly billed for. 2, the fees attached to each of those services. 3, any exemptions or discounts, such as for seniors or those on fixed incomes. And 4, collection procedures and policies. Your office policy on direct billing for uninsured services must be specific and detailed so that it is fully understood by both your staff and your patients. It should also allow flexibility to adapt to any unique or unexpected circumstances that may be encountered. In calculating fees for uninsured services, physicians should take into consideration some or all of the following factors to help determine how much they should be charging. 1, nature and complexity of the matter. 2, experience and expertise of the physician. 3, time spent with and/or on behalf of the patient. And 4, the cost of materials which are not included in the fees for uninsured services. Part 3, best practices in managing and billing your uninsured services. We want to make sure that you are optimizing your private billing revenue and getting paid for the time you spend providing these services. There are a couple of best practices that we will be sharing today. The first one is incorporating an annual block fee. A block fee is a defined flat fee charged for a predetermined set of uninsured services during a predetermined period of time. If you do choose to offer a block fee, you must also offer uninsured services separately at individual costs to the patients. The block fee is optional, and it does not have to be mandatory for patients to sign up. In Ontario, for example, the CPSO policy on block fees state that you may use third-party companies, such as us at Doctor Services Group, to assist in administering a block fee or invoicing uninsured services. Third parties who are asked to administer block fees or payments for uninsured services are acting on the physician's behalf. The second best practice is keeping patients well informed. Although the majority of your patients may be aware, there could still be some that require more education on their province's medical plan, and that specific services require payment. One critical area of success is confidently communicating directly with patients by distributing a personalized and customized letter from their doctor's office. This helps keep them informed and educated on the programs available to them. We understand the importance of patient education and ensuring patients are aware of the services that are not covered by their provincial health plan. We also know the importance of how this will impact your practice if not managed. This in turn will free up valuable time and resources for your medical practice, allowing you to focus on other areas of importance throughout the year. We know that managing your private third-party billings on your own is extremely time-consuming for you and your staff. Most physicians advise that they may not have the resources and are missing out on managing this opportunity. Working with Doctor Services Group, we take it all off your plate and add some sophistication to the entire process when collecting for uninsured medical services. The main benefits are patient education, a full service administrative program, as well as revenue generation. We fine-tune and customize a solution that will suit your practice and your unique needs. We send out a customizable annual letter to your patients that offers the choice between an annual fee program or the option to pay individually for services as needed. There is no out-of-pocket cost to the physician by working with us. We begin collecting revenue from the program and subtract our agreed upon percentage by simply providing you with the payment at the end of each quarter. It is also utilized as a communication tool to keep your patients informed. We encourage physicians to utilize our service to send out a clinic newsletter along with their mailing. That way, your patients stay informed and educated on your clinic policies throughout the year. We also include unlimited email blasts to your patients regarding any topic or notice you would like to communicate. The reality is, each year, physician services are being delisted from the province's medical plan. It is critical to have an uninsured services program in place to make it easy for you, your staff, and your patients. In summary, you should be offering these services and collecting without any guilt. Your time is valuable as a physician. If you do not already have a current policy in place for uninsured services, or you feel there could be more significant improvements to your current policy, send us an email and we can help customize a solution for you. Before we head into the Q&A section, I'd like to extend a special offer to all of our webinar guests joining us today. Until October 15th, we are offering all attendees our uninsured services program at a 25% discount for your annual fee. If you're not ready to sign up, we are also offering free audits to help you determine what you could potentially earn if you were to introduce an annual block fee program. If you would like to learn more, please email us and we can help get you started. Now we're going to close off on some questions from the attendees. If you have a question you would like to ask, please submit the question in the Q&A feature in the Zoom console. Your questions and your identity will only be seen by us, and I will read out your questions, but keep your identities confidential. I will give a couple of moments. I already see some questions coming up in the chat. Please take time to send us anything you would like to have answered. So I have a few questions coming in. Are prescription referrals for physio, chiro, orthotics, massage, etc. billable? And if so, is that with or without an office visit? It's a very good question. Prescription referrals are billable so long you received it by telephone or by fax. If you received it by telephone or fax, you can bill the patient for completing this script. If you receive or provide a script during an office visit, you're unable to charge the patient for that prescription. Another question coming in. How much is the annual fee? Is it a flat rate or a percentage of the payments received? At Doctor Care, we charge a percentage. In regards to what patients pay for an annual fee, patients pay a flat rate. Some of the annual fee options that are offered to patients include individual, couples, family rates, as well as senior rates. All of these fees paid by the patient can be customized accordingly to suit your practice. I have another question coming in. Here we are. Are annual service fees for doctor services group billed per individual physician or clinic group? Another great question. We can actually design the program where the individual physician can set up their own rates and contact their own patients at their practice, or we also offer a group. The group can determine the group's annual fee rate as well as the individual service they'd like to charge across the entire group's practice to all of the patients. In summary, we can customize to whatever fits your needs the best on an individual practice basis or on a group practice basis. Another one coming in. Can I determine my rates for the block fee? Yes, each physician is responsible for determining their own rates. At Doctor Services Group, we will actually share with you what the current average is across the province or even in your general vicinity. Upon reviewing those rates, you can actually adjust if you'd like to charge a little bit more, a little bit less, or if you'd like to just go with the flow and charge what other physicians are billing for their patients at their practices. Another question coming in. How can I charge for fax prescription requests if the request comes from the pharmacy? At Doctor Services Group, we have a portal with your entire list of patients who can be invoiced. If you receive a prescription request from the pharmacy, from myself as an example, you can search up Damien in our portal and fill in that Damien had received a prescription renewal as a faxed request. The doctor services group will notify Damien about this and have Damien pay for this service by either going online or having them pay when they visit your office directly. Another question. It looks like maybe a repeat, but I'll go over it again if you're just joining us now. Does my entire group need to offer an uninsured services program, or can I administer one individually? As stated earlier, you can offer an uninsured services program individually. It is your practice, and you can determine what services you charge and offer to your patients. Another one coming in. Does a program like this work in high-end areas? So to answer your question, we have physicians that work with us in all shapes and sizes across all different types of demographics, including low socioeconomic areas as well. The answer is no. We don't only work in high-end areas. We tend to find that working in areas where there's low socioeconomic status, it's still important to notify patients about what is covered in the medical plans and what is not, and then adjusting the rates accordingly. So that way they can participate, or as the physician, determine who's exempt. We mostly find that with a doctor's roster size, it tends to be only a handful of patients that are considered ineligible for the program. For that handful of patients, we would just exempt them as per the doctor's discretion, but still allow the majority of patients that are in a position to pay for the program the option to enroll, but at the very least know that they can pay individually for these services. Another question coming in order to repeat for a prescription that's fast, do we bill for renewal? What we suggest is each time you receive a request, whether it's from a patient or from the pharmacy, that is when you can bill for it. So if it ends up being a renewal request, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months later, and that is a new request that appears for a renewal, yes, you can bill the patient for that prescription renewal. Question coming in. What if we are currently collecting all our uninsured services in cash? Would a block fee program still be useful? The answer is yes. Our service will actually offer credit card, debit card payment online and over the phone. Your office can still collect the payments by cash, but now you open up the opportunity for patients to pay in the comfort of their own homes, but also talk to us over the phone if they have any questions about payment for these services. Another question coming in. What if I don't feel comfortable charging for these services? That's actually a common reservation we get, and it's a feeling at first. But you need to remind yourself that your time is valuable. The certain provinces have a medical plan, and they advise that these services do take up time and resources from the practice, and it should be notified to their patients that it is supposed to be paid upon request. For these non-medically necessary services being taken off of the schedule, it is more and more important for physicians to implement a plan and offer uninsured services programs to keep their patients informed. Over time, we notice that once the patients have been notified about these types of services and they understand their doctor isn't getting paid for the work they're providing, they quickly look to signing up for an annual fee program to pay a fixed rate up front, or they're more accepting of paying as they go when they visit the office to pick up a sick note or a driver's medical form or pay for an attending physician statement. All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for today. For the questions that we didn't get to address, we will reach out to you directly to answer your questions. Thank you to all attendees for joining us on our webinar. We will send you an email of the recording in the next couple of weeks to share with your fellow doctors. In the meantime, if you have any questions or feedback on this webinar, please feel free to contact us at any time. We'll see you at our next event.